or use the word static when you define main method, when you say public static void main. Now we will talk more about static variables and static methods. When you create an object with data inside it, these data are instance variables. Why they are called instance? Because they exist when you create the object. Now, when you define a variable static, then this variable is always there, regardless you have created an object or not created the object. So if you did not create an object and we have a static variable inside it, so how we access this static variable without creating an object? Simply you use the name of the class. And this is what happens for a special class that we are going to study, is the math class. This math class, inside it, it has static variables as well as static methods. So there is no need to create an object if you want to use this class. Simply say math dot, for example, ABS, which is the absolute value, because it is defined as a static. So if you have a static variable inside a class, then these static variables are shared by all objects when they are created from this class. And we will show you a demonstration by an example in a moment. So variables inside a class, when you declare them as a static final, and you know when we say final, it means they are constants and we cannot change them. You can define static variables public and you can define them as well as private. But remember, if you define them private, then you cannot use them outside the class. You can use them only inside the class. Any variable inside a class declared as a static without final, then we can change it. Now, when a variable is a static and you have created many objects from this class, then there will be only one instance of this variable that is shared by all of these objects. And it can be also accessed by all of them because it is shared by all of them. These static variables are also called class variables. And don't get confused with the instance variables. As I said before, the instance variables, they exist only when you create an object. However, a static variable, it is always there, even if you created an object from this class or if you did not create an object from this class. And also do not get confused with the variable inside the class as a class type. So sometimes you have a class and the data inside is also another class. This is different than the static variables. Let's have an example to show you the difference between instance variables and static variables. In this class, the name is called variable. Notice that it has a static variable called count and it has initial value 0, and we have another instance variable which is called size, and also it is equal to 0. Look at the constructor. The constructor simply changes the value of size only, but it keeps the count as it is. But for another method which is called increment, it increases the number of counts for the static variable. So which method changes the value of the static variable? It is increment. So every time we create an object and we call the method increment, it will increase count by 1. And remember that if you create more than one object from this class, then you will have only one variable for count that is shared by all of them. Let me show you how we can create objects from this class and how we can access the static data as well as the instance variables. As an example, suppose we have created two objects from the variable class in a separate class which is used as a demo class. In the first object, it initializes size to 5. In the second object, it initializes size to 8. Remember that size is an instance variable. So when you create two objects, there will be two different copies in each object. So this is what happens when we create the two objects. In the memory, we have object 1 that has size equal to 5 and object 2 has size equal to 8. But for the variable count, since it is static, then it is shared by both of them. So both of them can access count at the same time. So let us see when we use increment method for object 1. So the method increases the value of count by 1. So when increment method of object 1 is called, it will increase the value of count by 1. And since count is shared by both of them, for the next call by object 2 of the increment method, it will also increase the value of count by 1. So that means increment for the first object will change count, and increment for the second object also will change count. Why? Because it is shared by both of them. So now if we would like to print the value of count, if we print count from object 1, it will be equal to 2. And if we print the value of count from object 2, it's equal to 2. And if we print the value of count directly from the class, as we mentioned, that if we have a static variable, then it is always there, regardless if we create an object or if we don't create an object from this class. So how to access it? Simply by writing the name of the class dot and the static variable, which is count, and also it will give you the same value, which is equal to 2. After understanding the meaning of static variables, now we turn our focus to static methods. Similar to static variables, static methods are methods that are always there in the class, regardless if you have created an object from this class or not. So when this is useful, sometimes you would like to write a method that has no relation to any type of object. For example, suppose you would like to have a method that finds the maximum between two numbers. So when you create a class with this method, there is no data that is related to this method. And also, it doesn't make sense that you have to create an object just to use this method. So the best way to do it is that you define it inside a class as a static, and then we can use this method without creating an object, simply by writing the name of the method, followed by dot, and followed by the name of this method. So when you define a static method, the method is still a member of a class because you define it inside. But the method can be invoked without using any object. Simply write the name of the class, dot, and the name of the method. So you can invoke a static method by using the class name instead of an object. In more detail, static method declared in a class can be called or invoked without using any object. This is what we have just said in a moment. And also, instead of using the object, because we don't have an object, you use the class name. As an example, suppose, as I said, if you want to create a method that finds the maximum between two integers. As another example, suppose you would like to write a method that converts characters from uppercase to lowercase. So the best way to do that is to define them as static methods. As an example of static methods, suppose we would like to have methods that convert between two distant measures, inches and feet. The first method converts feet to inches, and the other method converts inches to feet. Now, since these methods cannot be related to any object, it doesn't make sense that we define them inside a class, and whenever we want to use them, we create an object from this class. The best way is that we define them inside a class as a static methods, and whenever we want to use them, we use them by the name of the class. We called the class converter, and we defined one constant variable inside as a static that relates inches to feet. So we know that 1 foot is equal to 12 inches, and we have the two methods that converts between feet and inches. The first method as input parameter has the value in feet, and it simply multiplies this value by inches per foot. The second method as an input, it has the value in inches, and to convert inches into feet, we simply divide number of inches by inches per foot. For demonstration, we have created a demo class that uses the converter class. First, as you see, we ask the user to enter a measurement in inches, And as you see, it asked the question, enter a measurement in inches. And suppose the user typed 12.9. Then we will call the static method convert inches to feet by using the class name. See, we did not create any object. We simply use the name of the class converter, and we use dot, and we accessed the method directly because it is static. And as you remember, when we say static, it means that the method is always there, regardless if you create an object from this class or not. And it will convert the value entered by the user 12.9 into inches, and the result is displayed on the screen. Later, we will ask the user again to enter a measurement in feet. And this is the question, enter a measurement in feet. And if the user typed 6.75, and again, if we want to convert this measurement in feet into inches, we call the method convert feet to inches from the class directly because it is a static method. So we write converter dot, and we call the method or invoke the method and supplying the value of feet as an input parameter. When it is called, then it will return a value that is converted into inches, and it will be displayed on the screen. 6.7 feet is equal to 80.4 inches.